Hello and welcome to Scale Stuff. In this week's video I'm going to be building the Airfix Vintage Classic Churchill Mk VII tank in 1/76 scale. I built the Vintage Classic bridge layer kit not long ago, and though the Churchill part of the bridge layer kit is the worst bit, it left me wanting to retackle just the tank. I'm pretty sure I have a problem, but it's best not to dwell on it. In the box you get the parts to build the kit, a full colour instruction guide, and a small sheet of decals. The paint plan for this model is printed on the back of the box. A first quick look at the sprues show the classic vintage classic look. The kit dates back to 1961, so 64 years old at the time of making this video, and it has all of the hallmarks of its time. A bit of flash, bad feed port locations, and numbers on all of the bits. I've seen it all before, and I don't know why I enjoy these old kits so much. Probably because they were all I could afford as a kid, so it's a trip down memory lane and a sorry to a model cocooned in paint. Oddly, these sprues seem a little crisper than the ones in the bridge layer kit, and the rubber band tracks seem thicker too, which is odd as the bridge layer kit came direct from Airfix, so you'd think it would be fresher. Anyway, onto the build. First thing I'm doing is cleaning up the side parts. I'm making sure I remove all of the feed ports I find, as the last time I built one of these kits, the feed ports got in the way. Side skirts cleaned up, it's onto the wheels. First thing I'm doing is removing all of the suspension arms. I know I'm removing them a bit crudely here, but off screen I'm going to clean them all up properly. Now it's on to removing the wheels. Here I'm going to remove the wheels and then add them to the suspension, and then add the whole unit straight onto the side of the tank. I'm doing this in this way to lower the risk of losing these tiny parts. The fit here is okay, but it's a little floaty and delicate. I'm going to crack on doing the rest of these off screen, as it's not the most entertaining thing to watch and it's the longest part of the build. This is how the two side pieces are looking, with all the wheels and suspension added on. Now it's onto the drive wheels. These are a simple two-piece sandwich construction and nice and easy to put together. With them together, it's a simple push-in fit to the sides of the tank. The fenders are nearly done now. Here the instructions are asking me to add the tracks, but I'm going to add them later on, so now it's just a case of adding the outer and inner side pieces together. I find with bits like this, it's best to start at one end and work along, getting each axle lined up one at a time. Once the wheels are in, it pays to gently push the side and base of the wheels against a flat object to help line them all up. This is how the two completed side bits are looking. With these bits done, it's onto the main hull of the tank. I find with this bit, it's easier to work on the top piece before adding it to the lower piece, as it makes it easier to handle. All of the bits here go on easy, but there are a few feed ports on the exhaust that will need to be removed to get it to fit properly. With all the upper parts done, it's simple to add the top of the hull to the hull base, and with them two bits together, that's the main hull area done. Simple. All that's left to do now is to add the bits together. Adding the sides on this kit is pretty simple and straightforward. Strangely, compared to the last time I did this for the bridge layer review, these bits went on a lot easier with less back and forth. It feels like this sprue set has better moulding, but then again, maybe I missed an injection port on the last one. With the sides on, I find it pays to give them a bit of a squeeze to get them firmly glued into place. All there is to do now is add the stowage boxes. With them on, that's the lower hull of the Churchill done. Now it's onto the turret. Off screen I cleaned up all the flash on these bits. The turret's really simple to build. The guns clip in and the rest is just a case of adding a few panels and hatches. With that done, that completes the build stage of this kit. Now it's onto the painting. For the first coat I'm using Humbrol Rattle-Can 155 Olive Drab. I know it's not a match for British World War II green, but the later layers will change the finish shade. As always, I'm spraying this up off screen, outside, to avoid fumigating myself. This is how it's looking with the base coat down. Next, I'm giving the model a quick wash of watered down black to give the model some more shadows. This is how it's looking with the wash dry. I always enjoy the first wash of a kit as it lets you know what you're dealing with for the rest of the build. Next up, it's onto painting the tracks. Off screen I've spray painted them matte black, so the first thing I'm doing here is giving the tracks a quick dry brush of gunmetal, followed by a dusting of Vallejo European Earth pigment powder, as I feel it's about time I started to try a few new things. Once the pigment powder was on, I fixed it in place with some hairspray, before giving it a second light dusting of the pigment powder. Now it's time to add the tracks. I'm doing the standard snip and tuck on these, gluing them up into the front fenders first, before gluing them along the base. And finally, I wedge and glue them at the back. I'm not too impressed with how the European Earth shade is looking. It's looking a little pink. I hope later it picks up on the BS Dark Earth wash and gives it some texture. Anyway, now it's on to adding the decals before I do the final weathering stages. The decals in this model go on quite nice. An interesting side note, unlike the last few vintage classic kits that I've built, there is not tons of carrier film on these, which is nice. This is what the tank's looking like with the decals on. Now it's time to give the tank its dust coat. For this I'm doing a light dry brush of skeleton bone. This acts as a highlight and tones back the green, making it look like this thing has been kicking up dust all day which has settled onto the tank. Finally, I'm giving the tank a focused hit of BS Dark Earth, going around all of the areas that would collect mud, and adding a little bit of this to the tops and sides where people would walk around on the tank. And with that on, I think I'm going to call this model done. This is the finished model. I'm quite proud of how this little Churchill has come out. I must say, I think the Churchill is an awesome looking tank. I think it looks very much like a halfway house between World War I and World War II tanks. In conclusion, the Airfix Vintage Classics Churchill Mk VII is a nice kit for its age, and it builds into a nice model, but doesn't have the level of detail that more modern kits have. The main thing to watch out for in this kit is the injection ports, as some of them will get in the way of getting a good fit as you're building this thing, so make sure you remove them all. The wheels are the longest step of this kit, and more fiddly than tricky, but when both side pieces are in place, actually become pretty solid. The rest of the tank's really easy to build. For some reason in this kit, went together a bit better than the Churchill part of the bridge layer kit. Is this luck of the draw, practice, or some problem with quality control? I'm not really sure. I like the fact that the decals included with this model didn't have a great big seam of carrier film on them, and they fitted a hell of a lot better than some of the other vintage model kit decals I've built in the past. Costing £7, I think that this model is good value for money and would be a good kit for someone who's just started out in the hobby. It would also be a good model for more experienced modelers looking for a paint mule for a bigger kit. Anyway, that's my build and review of the Airfix Vintage Classics 1/76 scale Churchill Mk VII tank. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you found this build and review helpful. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing, as it really helps the channel out. Until next time though, look after yourselves and have a good one. Goodbye.